Hello, I'm Kraig Conrad, NCMA CEO, and I'm delighted to be here with Rick Grimm, the CEO of NIGP, the Institute for Public Procurement. We're here to talk a little bit about their journey to become a recent adopter of a contract management standard, and we certainly want to learn a little bit more about how we're collaborating on our journey toward a globally recognized standard. So Rick, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Kraig.
And thank you for your commitment to our future together. And I'm delighted to be working with you on this because NIGP truly represents what we believe is a shared mission toward a future practice where we all understand the same words, we all understand things. But more importantly, I think you particularly demonstrate that service to the communities we serve. And that's so important to NCMA, and delighted to have you here. So,
honored to be here.
Jumping into our first question.
Sure.
So our partnership, what we've come together to do is around your procurement competency framework.
Right.
And we are looking at how this can align and actually complement each other as we look at how our practice evolves. So Could you tell us a little bit more about the framework and then help us understand a little bit about how this alignment will start us on a journey toward a universal standard?
Sure. So we always looked at that opportunity to provide education as kind of a knowledge-based curriculum. Obviously, if you don't understand, this comes back to standards and what we would identify as the body of knowledge that gets instructed in our classrooms but mostly in that state and local space. And we have always had a framework for education and knowledge. But the challenge is that knowledge by itself does not translate into results. The practice of the knowledge and knowing how to apply the knowledge to work-life situations, which is the competency side of developing skills, is really where we need to be. If, for example, if someone who is brilliant understands, the 5 elements of a contract, just for an example, but doesn't know how to apply that in the work situation, that doesn't help them be successful. So we really wanted to focus primarily on a competency-based model. At the same time that we were thinking about that from an education standpoint, we got wind of a Volcker Alliance study that was done in 2016, and the Paul Volcker Alliance in that study was focusing on the competencies that individuals need in order to be successful, primarily on the public policy issues. So individuals that are in procurement, contracting, acquisition, what kinds of skills do they need in order to be successful in doing their jobs in the public sector, federal, state, and local? And in fact, the Volcker Alliance on their first research was at the federal level, and we were asked by the researchers to come in and give a state and local flavor on it, see if that was any different. And there were a couple of nuances that were different, and I think that will be part of our conversation, but there's more similarities than there are differences. And as a result of that, the Volcker Alliance actually had 12 competencies that they believed was really important for public procurement and contracting. And we took that and we built that out actually into 33 competencies that are aligned kind of in 7 major focus areas. The things like planning and analysis, sourcing, contract management. But the things that we haven't been focused in on the past are things like strategy, business continuity, and leadership. So how do we help individuals develop those competencies as well? And so we created that in the public procurement competency framework. And it's kind of a micro-learning and micro-credentialing against those 33 competencies that are in there. That really is the kind of the evolution of our conversation, Kraig, because you said, is there a connection between what NCMA has done with a SIMBOK, your contract management body of knowledge, and this Pathways curriculum? And in fact, when our teams got together and looked at where the similarities are, they said there are quite a bit of crossover on here, which is actually good news because it means that we can identify where there's dissimilarities and see whether maybe we don't have it right, maybe NCMA has it right with SIMBOK, or conversely, where are there gaps that as association executives we need to close in order to help individuals develop their competencies in their career.
So I'm delighted to hear that because as you know, our SIMBOK is based on the contract management standard.
Right.
So the standard is what people do.
Right.
The competencies are what people should do.
Right.
And we capture those in our SIMBOK. So I love how closely aligned they are in terms of how they structure.
Right.
And I look forward to how we might be able to harmonize those over time.
Right.
So with that structure, which is amazing, your fresh new content, I know you brought that online maybe 4 years ago, I think, with the pathways.
Yes, started in developing in 2019. And by the way, as you know, when it comes to education, you never end because you continue to develop, new competencies that are important to the profession.
Agreed, and we do that with the CMS. So part of the update that we must do very frequently is to ensure that it reflects what people are doing today.
Exactly.
And that changes every year. So we're in a refresh right now, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So as you looked at the contract management standard and how it could fit into your framework, what were some of the key drivers behind that and in terms of the decisions to adopt?
Right. So one of those 7 elements, these kind of the focus groups, is on contract management administration. I will tell you that we had a very narrow view of what contract management is, and we think about it in terms of after the solicitations are done. This is about managing the contractual relationship with the supplier community and getting the best performance out of it. And SIMBOK goes way beyond that particular area. But in this area of what contract management administration looks like, we wanted to see where we were most closely aligned and realized that for significant, I'm going to say it's probably in that 85 to 90 percentile, that there is a strong alignment between pathways and the SIMBOK, your CMS. So we wanted to make sure that as a respectable organization like NCMA, that we are supporting that level of effort and really learning from you and the work that you've done in that contract management space for our members to be more effective in contract.
Well, so that's very exciting because a lot of what the standard is intended to do is to reflect what many in the academic circles have defined as contract management. So the entire life cycle includes practices that are pre-award, procurement, post-award, and award.
Right.
Award is not just I signed the contract, right? They're particularly in government segments, public procurement and government, there are things that happen at the award time that are not just we signed.
Right.
So delighted that we can continue our work to harmonize. It's certainly a wonderful journey to help those align. So as we look into the future, as we talk about what is next for our collaboration, how do you envision that this can help to continue to evolve what Pathways does and how it can provide possibly improvements in the customer-supplier relationships?
Right. So I think a couple things. One is, I think one of the reasons why NCMA and NIGP work really collaboratively on this is that even though it's the same practice, it's practice done at different levels of government, of public sector, where NCMA has been focused primarily in the federal space, NIGP has been focused primarily on the state and local space. And the real interesting thing is that there are on occasion crossovers. There are individuals that have been in the federal workforce and are now working in the state and local. How do we help those individuals, in that transition? But I think the key point is that we need to be working together to keep a pulse on what's happening in the profession and to be kind of heads up on helping our members get better at what they do. I think the role of associations really has kind of transitioned. In the old days, and I'm one of those old days person, the purpose of an association was because we were the leading authority. We had all the content, and the only way in which you could get the content is through the gatekeeping of being a member of the association. And the world changed with the World Wide Web and the internet, and now people can get information everywhere else. So now what is our new role in association? I think it's about taking that content and curating it to meet our specific needs of the clients that we are serving? And how do we expand that content? How do we stay ahead of the curve so that when something new comes through, we've done the adequate research, we've worked with standards to help our members with that new content. That's where I think this partnership really can excel, by really just spending really good quality time with our two teams. What do you see coming up on the horizon that we need to know about? Maybe we work collaboratively, build content or a standard that gets translated into what you need at a local or airport authority, et cetera.
So very excited to hear, and I want to make a quick shout out to Jack Pellegrino, who's someone who helped first with our crosswalk,
right?
Also has joined the standard consensus body, which is our approved by ANSI body that oversees our consensus-based standard. And secondly, a congratulations to NIGP for having their Pathways certification program be accredited to the ISO and IEC 17024 standard. Congratulations.
Hey, well,
on
thank you very much. And you can't take ownership on Jack because Jack is joining the NIGP governing board as one of 11 voting members. We're just absolutely thrilled with Jack's introduction. And I think Jack, because he has that unique understanding of NCMA and NIGP, you always want to find someone who can blend those two together and realize that it's not about planting an association flag. It's about how associations come together to collaborate to really help Jack in the work that he's doing in San Diego County and his colleagues that are in not only in county government, but are doing amazing work in public service. So,
well, Jack's a great example of what you mentioned earlier about people who have crossed in between different, I call them flavors of public procurement.
Yeah.
Having worked at the government side and now working at a local side, a county side. So
yeah,
very exciting.
I want to talk a little bit about that issue because I think it's something that I think we really haven't focused in on, but we can. And the reason why the collaboration is so important. One thing that we have struggled on the state and local side, and I'm sure it has happened on the federal side, and I'm sure it's not just with public service, but it's the loss of talent that has happened in public, nonprofit, and private sector. There's too many jobs, there's too few talent to come in. And so I think we're all going to be struggling with what talent recruitment and what talent retention looks like. Now here's the really beauty of us working together. We should stop thinking that there is a barrier between being employed in federal service and now moving to a state or local. We do not want the Jack Pellegrinos of the world to be the unicorn. We want to have that free flow of individuals that can be working one day at a very large airport and the next is working somewhere in the federal space. And the only way that's really going to happen is if you have a standard way in which the practice is practiced, both in terms of the standard itself, in terms of the knowledge base, and then how does it move in terms of the competencies, the skills in order to be effective. That, for me, Kraig, is the absolute reason why we have to work together. We have to figure out how we help the industry, how we help the individuals in the industry make that transition up and down the ladder in terms of public service.
And I want to foot stomp that because it's always about the workforce. That's why you and I are in this business. We love the people we serve.
Yeah.
At the state and local level and the federal level, the barrier is really thinner than we would think. So coming together will give more opportunities, particularly at the state level, which you do a significant amount of training for. These are the places where a lot of the flow down responsibilities come from federal dollars that then get distributed out through agencies. This is a natural playing ground for us to help support the workforce and hopefully create opportunities, pathways, sort of different pathways, but career pathways where people can see a journey.
Right.
And that's another outcome of our collaboration that I think will be very powerful.
Yeah, totally.
So the other area, we just talked a little bit about workforce, but on an ongoing basis. So you have a fresh new program 4 years out with Pathways. How do you see the standard continuing to leverage that Certainly as the CMS updates, we hope to see that, our collaboration will help both our body of knowledge and your body of knowledge update.
Exactly.
How do you see that continuing on with certainly the certification, but other professional development initiatives at NIGP?
Yeah, so unfortunately, oftentimes individuals will sign off and say, hey, we should be part of this process. And then we don't put the level of effort to sustain it. Therefore, there really is no purpose of really saying, hey, we support the standard. It's not about shaking a hand, signing a document, and then walking away. We have to be very committed on the NIGP side. I know that NCMA on the same, on how we continue to be each other's sounding board. What do we see happening at our respective areas, and how do we get that elevated into the standard? Now, we also thought about this. We have thought about this. I know that NCMA has done a much better job of looking at how the standard moves globally. But that's an absolute essential part. And NIGP has not really been playing that much of a role on a global. We're North American. We have a good constituent from Canada, but we haven't gone beyond the kind of the North America boundary per se. So how do we help local governments in the different continents in Asia and Europe also understand how that is applied at a county or a municipality level? And that is looking at the standard, seeing how the standards are impacted by international commerce, and to make sure that's part of the curriculum that we're developing. So, that was a long way of saying what we need to do is constantly make sure our teams are meeting, whether that's a standard meeting, every quarter. What are some lessons learned? What are you seeing on the horizon? And then we, as you said, it's very clearly this is about our members, it's about the workforce, it's about them getting better and helping them in their career development. Most people don't want to stay at a particular area. They want to grow in their profession, which means they need more skills, they need more knowledge, they need more competencies, which means that's the reason why we do our work, because we're providing that level of support and understanding.
So you mentioned international, and another plug that I was very excited about, the partnership of World Commerce and Contracting coming in to help elevate the standard globally. We talk about practices around the world. The intent of the standard on our journey to ISO is that we all use it. It's a public good.
Right.
So our responsibility as NCMA is that we will continue to care and feed for this, but collaborate with those like-minded partners who see that this is a good thing for our profession and our practice. So I'm delighted to bring them in so that we can call on those states and prefectures or whatever you want to call them anywhere else in the world, that we harmonize. We use the same terms because that's the only way in the long run we're going to solve our workforce shortages.
Yeah, and Kraig, we're grateful that you've created that stage, because that stage gives us that opportunity to come together and to learn from others who are in the practice, so that we may realize that those gaps that we need to close for our constituents, our members, the public agencies that we represent. So this is a very, very exciting opportunity to be part of that conversation.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. So our closeout, what advice would you give to anyone else who might be considering coming on this journey with us?
I believe the days where associations work in isolation is over. Our members demand and expect more from us. They expect for us to help them, to be kind of the trusted advisors and helping them with their career. And so if associations isolate themselves and they develop some content, or they develop an educational program that doesn't have legs over into other areas, and learning and how we're building content, learning from others, working collaboratively to build new content, new practices, new standards, we've really missed our mark. And quite honestly, I don't think those types of associations will survive much longer. It is about collaboration. It's about coming together for the common good. So what I would say to individuals who are taking a peek and saying, should we really be involved in that? If in fact contract management is a piece of your knowledge base for your members, you absolutely need to be part of this community, because it's a community coming together to do good work. And I would strongly encourage others to to take notice and to be part of that team working together for the benefit of the industry we serve.
That's great to hear. And I love your call out on the association space. It used to be that you had a balance sheet and you had a paywall, and that's the definition of your success.
Right.
That isn't what's going to put us forward. And I think those that are like-minded, like us that have come together, are going to forge the way forward for procurement and contract management. Rick, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. I also am very grateful for you personally being on this journey. You care so much about your workforce, your members. You are like-minded, and it's a wonderful opportunity for us to work together.
Totally. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you very much. And if you're interested in learning more about the standard, please go to ncmahq.org/CMS. If you want to become an adopter, which Rick encourages you to do so, as well as I, please go to ncmahq.org/adopters.